In July of 2020, King Song cornered the market with their first ever suspension wheel, the S18. Refusing to be outdone, around about that same time, Pagode and InMotion introduced versions of their suspension wheels, the EX and V11 respectively. Although the fanfare was hyped by the fact these newly designed wheels were outfitted with adjustable suspensions that for all intents and purposes would serve to make for a more comfortable gliding experience, they didn't come without their fair share of problems. Not to belabor those problems, there is an adage that states, nobody has the ability to make things perfect, but given the opportunity, they can make it better. With that said, King Song has gone all in, rolled the dice, and profoundly changed the very foundation of what an EUC suspension wheel is in their S20 Eagle for the better. Or did they? But before I continue, I'd like to give a shout out to Free Motion Shop for providing me with the King Song S20. I have nothing but praise for the way in which Free Motion has gone above and beyond to ensure that my buying experience with them was nothing more than pleasurable. Anyone in the market for an S20 or any PEV for that matter should reach out to Free Motion Shop to place an order. So without further ado, let's get into this review. Out the box, the S20's dry weight is 74.11 pounds, with each battery weighing in at 10 pounds each. What's intriguing about its weight is, although not the heaviest of all suspension wheels, the S20's weight is at that sweet spot to make it a wheel that can be easily controlled and manipulated on any type of terrain. Contributing to its welterweight is the hard, replaceable breakaway plastic that makes up the majority of the accessories, namely the adjustable headlights, jump pad brackets, bumper, side panels for the batteries, the rear light, jump pads, fender, kickstand, and the on-off button. And as I quickly learned, some of the hard plastic does not fare well in a low impact fall. Did I mention a low impact fall? Side note, King Song has since corrected the issue with a plastic bumper by replacing it with a more reinforced plastic bumper. Moving on. The two 6-pin charging ports, capable of charging at 10 amps, along with the on-off button, are positioned underneath the front portion of the S20, secured to the housing for the motherboard. Depending on the size of your hand or fist, will make for a trying time when aligning the female end of the charger to the male end of the ports. To put some perspective on the opening, it measures 4 inches wide. Also, with all EUCs, caution is advised when riding these wheels in the rain. Although the S20 is outfitted with a decent fender, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And with that being said, after riding around, it was time to charge the wheel, and as I suspected, inertia and gravity had worked the rubber cover away from one of the charging ports. As to how long it had been that way, no idea. However, the design of the wheel will not prevent the pins from getting wet, nor preventing the rubber covers from falling short of their job. So word of caution, be mindful of this. And speaking of the motherboard, talk has it the S20 has a 126-volt sensorless Hall sensor based controller that's supposed to allow a glider to continue riding the S20 in case of a failure without a threat of a cutout. When you think about it, it's a bold move on King Song's part because up to this point, no other EUC manufacturer has attempted this feat due in part of the complexities involved in writing a startup sine wave for the controller. However, unlike most EUC manufacturers, King Song has an in-house controller development team. Again, this is a new feature on the S20, so little is currently known as to how it will perform down the road. But nonetheless, it will more than likely be the catalyst for improved controllers. Moving on. The headlights of the S20 provides a wide disbursement of the 8 adjustable 5-watt lights in the upright position, as seen here. For those wanting to hone in its disbursement, a quick turn with a T10 hex screwdriver to each screw on the headlight covers will yield these results. As shown here, although there's any noticeable difference, the light disbursement is more narrow in scope. Moving on. The display panel of the S20 is very basic in its design and feature and consists of battery life and miles per hour in kilometers. So yeah. Moving on. Although the trolley handle is super snug and quite challenging extending and descending, the likelihood of it ejecting in a crash is slim to none. Lifting the wheel by the trolley and lift sensor handle demonstrates how snug it is. Side note, this method of lifting the S20 was for demonstration purposes only and should never be used because it is not designed to be used as a means of lifting the wheel off the ground. Additionally, the handle is sturdy enough to endure pressures of a drop or two. However, when dealing with the trolley handle, make sure the handle is flush with the frame. Fully extended, the handle extends roughly 2 feet 9 inches, while in comparison to the 18L XL, their handle measures around 3 feet 4.5 inches. In conjunction to the trolley handle, the lift sensor is made of sturdy metal that locks in place next to the control board. It fits snug underneath the stock seat and can be easily accessed. During multiple drops, jumps, and hitting divots with the seat on and off, the lift sensor never snaps out of its position. Moving on. The anodized 4x10-inch metal spike footplates outfitted on the S20 complements the overall design of the EUC. Putting the size into perspective, a female size 9 and a male size 7 can fit heel to toe without any overhang. And since guys like to boast that size doesn't matter, I surmise in this case it doesn't either. Having gone through Maryland, Gotway, Free Motion, and Nilo spike footplates, the symmetry design of the S20 spike plates provided my girl size 9 with ample enough surface space to provide me the comfort and stability I needed in pulling off jumps and sticking and landing, all without stressing my feet. There are 2 height adjustments that can be made by taking a T15 hex screwdriver and removing 4 screws from the front and back of the L bracket of the footplate. At the lowest setting, height clearance measures at 7.5 inches and its highest clearance, 8 inches. Moving on. Jump pads. What is there to say other than they are adequate and will take some serious adjusting to get them to a desired feel. The bracket does come in handy with the stock pads as they provide a stable obstacle for gaining leverage when torquing or climbing hills. Moving on. The stock seat too is adequate. After sitting for a considerable amount of time without it and then switching to having it, the seat does provide a level of protection that is quite distinguishable. And although there are some gripes and grumbles about its padded protection, I'd rather have it than not. Moving on. Although Kingsong asserts the tire that comes with the S20 is a 2.75 3-inch tire, I compared it to the Kinder off-road tire, which supposedly is a 2.75 3-inch tire. Let the record reflect there is a slight difference in that the Kingsong tire is slightly wider. Performance-wise, I was pleasantly pleased at the way in which the wheel felt glued to varying terrains and the shock worked their mechanical magic over bumps and dips while gliding on gravel, mud, and wet grass. The added surface area of the tire coupled with its design made the wheel plow through mud and wet grass without a hint the wheel would give way to slippage. Don't get me wrong, there were some moments wherein the tire had some play in the mud. However, the wheel's upper strength made it easy to control in those scenarios where slippage was minimized by a mere correction of the hips. Overall, the rim size of the S20 is a step up from previous EUC models. The solid construction coupled with the tire round out the stability and smoothness of the ride. Moving on. The S20 sports a 2220 watt, 126 volt battery that powers a 3300 watt hollow bore brushless motor and caps out at 43 miles per hour. Notwithstanding the fact the no load of the S20 suggests it's more than capable of reaching speeds in excess of 50 plus miles per hour with a load, it is no surprise that Kingsong capped this wheel at 43 miles per hour. Dubbed one of the most reliable brand of EUCs on the market and the slowest in terms of speed, Kingsong has slowly changed its recipe on delivering a wheel that accelerates beyond 32 miles per hour. And although some things gradually changes, others remain the same. In order to experience the first ever 40 plus mile per hour Kingsong wheel, one must first endure becoming one with the wheel by being capped at 17 miles per hour for roughly 3 miles or so. For newer riders trying to get a foothold, this may be welcomed. However, for seasoned gliders, this process can be quite cumbersome, downright insulting, and 3 miles of sheer torture by the constant reminder to go slow to go fast when you're actually going slow, as seen here. Although jailbreaking is an option of circumventing the initial speed limit, Glitchy app makes gliding around the 3 plus mile more appealing. During the course of putting the S20 through the rigors, I was able to squeeze a total of 66.69 miles out of the battery before reaching 11% battery life. Although not impressive according to the specs, which boasts 120 plus miles, in its defense, the weather conditions on the East Coast have been less than ideal with temperatures ranging in the mid to high 30s, with wind gusts ranging from 30 to 50 miles per hour at times. At one point, the battery went from 36% down to 14% in less than 15 minutes as a result of tackling frontal high gusty winds. To add to the abysmal range outcome, I rode the S20 the way in which I would normally, with the exception I kept my speed limit below 31 miles per hour. Charging the S20 according to specs stated 4 hours, which is roughly the time it took to fully charge from 11%. Now, barring the fact that East Coast weather conditions nearly cut the S20's specified range in half, during the half I was able to get out of the wheel was nothing short of prodigious. This was not only due in part of the upgraded battery and motor of the S20, but the total package encompassing the rear B&M downhill coil shock with an external reservoir that's outfitted with a rebound, compression, and preload adjustment to include a 130 by 75 millimeter 750-pound spring. And since we are referencing a unicycle and not a regular bicycle, the fact the shock has no lockout coil for those hardcore jumpers, nor an adjustment for rider weight shouldn't be a bone of contention. Or should it? In a nutshell, rebound dampening controls how fast or slow the shock returns to its normal position after being compressed so it's ready to absorb the next impact, while compression forces are determined by the terrain. I found by hardening the compression and slowing the rebound made the S20 stiff, which served best for traveling on roadways. By softening the compression and fastening the rebound or somewhere thereof, the S20 was more responsive and agile to those imperfections in the roadway which served best on trails and off-roading. Tweaking the suspension wheel is user-friendly, yet will take some time in finding that sweet spot. Given the combination of the upgraded battery, motor, the 3-inch wider than normal knobby tire, the D&M rear wheel shock, and the spike foot plates make the S20 the GOAT of the suspension realm thus far. The ride of the wheel is quite smooth considering the extra wide knobby tire as well as being quiet on hard surfaces. With its power, acceleration, and speed, the S20 mechanical makeup combines the element of a high torque EUC along with a speed version EUC, thus eliminating the choice of choosing either or. Noteworthy of mention, depending on how aggressive your initial lean is on the S20, it will balk at your effort and dip slightly before correction. However slight as this may be, this is more than likely contributed to the sensorless Hall sensor-based controller. Again, the complexity of this feature is in the initial start from a stop. On taking the S20 up a steep hill consisting of a briar patch and mud at slow speeds, and we all know going up a hill at slow speeds is a no-no, the S20 kept moving and performed without a hint it was struggling. Riding down steps with the S20 was a blast. The smooth running shock offered a plush, consistent feel which transferred to the wheel, feeling as if it was glued to the ground. And because of the power of the wheel, it fought to stay upright, even when I slipped up and leaned too far forward descending a set of stairs. And because of this, I had to try several varying stair setups to ensure the feel was consistent. And it was. Riding trails and the streets, the S20 versatility was on par with my experience riding the stairs. Dialing in the suspension to suit the type of terrain made the wheel adaptable and responsive. Gaining speeds beyond 30 plus wasn't quite as fast out the gate, but it was fast enough to where you really didn't know what speed you were hitting. Moving on. Overall, rolling the dice as Kingsong has in producing a wheel that will be the catalyst for change in the way in which EUCs perform was a good move. Currently, the most anticipated, most talked about suspension wheel this way come has sparked a lot of momentum in sayers and naysayers alike. Whether Kingsong is your cup of tea, the fact remains that S20 is all its glory and lack thereof is a force to be reckoned with. With this new technology and alluring design, one would be remiss in not giving this wheel a second look. Heck, other EUC manufacturers are. That's why they are scrambling to outcompete its design and performance. But then again, this wheel is not for everyone. This I know. However, after weighing the options coupled with your needs, you find that S20 has what you want without any of the unnecessary extras? Do you, boo? With that being said, we've come to that part of the video where you guys know what time it is. Hit that like button, subscribe, share, comment, good, bad, or indifferent. So until next time, guys, moving on.